Joining us from Los Angeles is Larry Harris. He is a finance and business and economics professor at USC, or the University of Southern California School of Business. Welcome to BizAsia America, Professor. From the SEC perspective, the commission, the regulators, how are they going to look at this flash freeze, in your opinion?
Well, they'll look at it very closely. It's quite important to have a lot of different eyes examining these problems to make sure that no biases get in. It's very important that we have reliable trading systems. The system proved not to be as reliable as we would have liked yesterday. And so NASDAQ first and foremost, and the SEC and NASDAQ's customers will all be looking carefully to make sure that NASDAQ responds appropriately in the aftermath.
Professor, I know you're not a lawyer, but if we're investors and we're in the markets and we're making trades and the markets were to freeze and we were supposed to do things and that causes potential loss, do the investors have any recourse at that point? I mean, who do investors go to complain if they feel like that they've been disenfranchised?
Well, they would complain first with their broker, but the broker wouldn't have much power in the circumstance because it was a problem with NASDAQ. And so the broker would complain to NASDAQ and perhaps the customer as well. But we're not going to see too many of those situations in this case. People who wanted to trade could have waited 3 hours and traded afterwards. Typically, people will just delay their trading. The only people who are really going to get hurt are the people who are doing arbitrage, where maybe they established a purchase position and they needed to sell something else. If they could establish the first position, but they couldn't do the second, they had a problem. Those people might be in trouble, but there are not very many of those.
Professor, I remember after the terrorist attack after 9/11, a lot of the banks made it quite a priority to make sure there are redundant systems in place to prevent one place of technology failure to affect the entire system. A lot of banks did this. The exchanges were doing this as well. Why do you think that perhaps didn't help the situation? What was the reason they couldn't go to a backup system?
Well, the irony is, and I understand that they did have a backup system. When the SIP was having trouble processing data, and this was happening during the course of the morning, as I understand, at some point they decided that it would be best to switch over to the backup system. Now, when you do that switch over, you cross your fingers and hope everything's going to work right. And in the past, I'm sure they tested it and found that it worked right. But this time when they did the switch over, everything collapsed. And that was the problem. So there was a redundant system, but it didn't work. That's unfortunate. You can ask for more redundant systems, but when your redundant systems don't work on the switchover, then it's a problem. The answer, of course, is more practice. And I'm sure that one of the things that will come out of this is a recommendation that they practice more switching from one system to the other system.
We're looking at some video from the New York Stock Exchange. And, you know, I was there just a couple days ago, and I'll bet you the New York Stock Exchange folks, I mean, they're not smiling, but they're trying to make a serious point here, because one of the differentiating factors is the fact that they have people in place in the event there's a technological failure. Is this a case where the people or humans end up being a backup to technology?
Well, the New York Stock Exchange and their officers and traders, of course, will feel smug about this, but within very tight limits. They know that this could have happened to them as well. The system that went down is a system that collects data from traders, whether they're electronic or manual traders, and then sends that data out to the public. All stock exchanges, whether they're electronic or manual, have such systems, and so manual exchange could have suffered the same problem. They will, of course, pay very close attention, as will all the other exchanges, to what happened to make sure that their systems don't fail in the same way in the future.
All right. Larry Harris, professor at the University of Southern California School of Business there at Economics. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great weekend. And here in the